Hey guys, and welcome back to Sending Supporters to Space in Factorio, and to probably one of the most anticipated videos for this series. We're going to go on a base tour today. So, some people may find this who have not actually seen the series. So, if you are interested in how we actually got to this point in our Megabase here, then you can definitely check out the series. But this video will be in the playlist since it is, obviously part of that series. So, in Sending Supported Space map here, I've set up PAX train at our Make Everything factory, and I've queued up all of our PAX stations. We're pretty much just going to go in chronological order, how they're arranged, and also in the way in which the materials actually flow. So, going to go to steel first, and then iron, and then copper, and then oil, I think, down here, and then to circuits, and then to red, green, blue science, and then to purple high-tech science and their components, and then to labs, and then to the rocket component section and the rocket silos themselves. So people did request a base tour, so we're going to hop in here. I do have helicopters, but I figured it would be fun to take a train instead. We really should start utilizing our PAX trains. So I've also exchanged out my legs. I had a ton of roboports. I put in legs so I can run between builds quicker, just because the pack stations dump us kind of in the middle and not like literally every single build itself. And we are below 60 UPS. Unfortunately, we are producing a lot of stuff, actually. We're producing 200,000 circuits a minute at the moment. So that would be why. This would probably be a good time to go to the circuits. We're doing some research. So let's head to steel. And I'm going to kind of give a brief overview and explanation of, each build that we get to, because, that's part of what you want to see, obviously, I'd imagine. And then this is actually a good time that we are doing this. Hopefully it maintains at least over 100,000 or 150,000 when we get to circuits, because that'll be quite nice to see. Thought we were going to have a collision there. Now, I'm not sure if all these pack stations are actually accessible. Some of them I just did now, and the signaling may be iffy. If so, we're going to have to go it on manual. So here we are. This guy's told to just wait for circuit condition. So we'll hop out here. And down here, this is our fueling station for this. A lot of people have asked me in this video and not this video, in other videos in the series and even videos not related to the series directly, how the fueling system is set up. And I've never really covered it specifically. And it's actually a really cool system here. So what we have is we have one fuel train. This is the only fuel train. We don't have any more than this. We have one single fuel train. And what he does is he has all the fuel stations for each of our builds in his schedule, as well as his pickup from the rocket fuel. He goes to the first build here. So when we look at the schedule, don't stand on the tracks, you'll notice that he first goes to oil refuel, and then he goes back to pickup, and then he goes to blue circuits, and then pickup, and then ME, and then pickup, so on and so forth. So he visits each place he needs to fuel, and then straight back to the pickup. And you'll notice nearly all of the fueling places are actually red. And this is because in order to actually get him around to every build without, just kind of sending him to each one and maybe him going to ones that are already full and then, not going to ones that are empty in time, what we've done here is have this station set up with the logistics network here. You'll see he's in the row port range to enable and disable if the research done. To enable and disable if the rocket fuel in this network here is less than 600. So what this means is that this station will disable after it hits 600 or above, and then it will re-enable once it gets to below 600, which will tell the train, oh, this station is enabled, it's on, I can now go here and refuel it, because off stations, the train just ignores them, essentially. He'll just skip these, right? Any stations that are turned off, he won't go to them. Now, this is a little bit janky. I've noticed a few times where the bots will prefer to pull from one part of it, so he sits here for a little extra time. It shouldn't be too bad. You notice that most of these are still red, so they're not in need of fuel. That's how the fueling system works, and it just goes to all our main builds, and then we just have bots distributed without. And then this madness down here is what I have patented as the Switcheroo. This is a switching station. We're using tanks to transfer materials between the incoming trains from the outposts and the trains within the network to deliver to the smelters. I originally used roboports, but somebody had a very good idea to use vehicles because their hitbox is big enough to where you can actually do it. Due to the spacing of rails, you can't really do it with normal chests. They have a pretty large inventory, and you don't need bots. This probably would have needed a couple thousand bots throughout, and saving those is really helpful. So these trains pull in, and you'll notice that a lot of them are no pathing. And this is intended. Now, some people, like Mojo and Zuri, do not like this, and that's fair enough. It's a little bit of a janky system, but it works, and it works really well. So if you're okay with this type of method, this is actually something that has worked beautifully. So what happens, right, is these trains pull in, and see if I can do this without killing myself. These trains pull in, and they get to the station, and they trigger this signal. You'll see the signal's right before the station. So when he actually pulls into the station, he'll be ahead of this signal, which will turn it red. And this signal, as well as the signal here and the signal back here, are wired into these stations with a few combinators. And these send out. So if the red signal, if what this is connected to, which is a signal back down here, is giving out a red signal, it'll output 1, and then same with this one. And it takes all that information and gives it to these stations, which enable and disable based on the amount of red signals it's getting. So if red is less than 2, it enables. If it's more than 2, essentially it disables. And so what this is doing is when this train pulls in and there's one behind it, it disables this station. Now you'll notice on the map, this one above it is not disabled because there's not a train waiting here. And why we did this is we did try this type of system without any smarts, and it worked kind of, but the problem was that the trains were still being silly and lazy, and pathing to primarily the first stations here. And it's even worse on the iron ones because there's more of them. There's 3 sets on each side rather than just 2. So trains were primarily just pathing to the first 2, even though the other ones were open. Even when there were 2 trains waiting here, the trains coming in this way would just try to path to it and just sit there and block every other train trying to go in. So what we did is we came up with this system, or rather Hopewell came up with this system, and we implemented it, and this completely prevents that, because if there's a train in here and none waiting, it's fine. A train can path here because we want another one waiting. But if there's one in it and one waiting, this station disables and forces a train to path to a different station. And this is the case for every single one in here, which means that it pretty much, if we have enough trains incoming, it forces trains to go to stations that actually need a train and not ones that are already full of a train there and a train waiting. So that's how the system works. It's pretty, I guess, maybe overcomplicated, but it's an idea I had, and it's something I wanted to try, and so far it's worked beautifully. You just need a lot of trains for it. So that's the deal there, and the smelters themselves are pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into this much detail for like Iron 2 because it uses the same switcheroo. Otherwise this video would be like an hour. But steel smelters are using direct insertion, so they're getting the ore dropped off here, and the bots are moving it and putting it here, which turns it into iron plate, which is directly inserted through boxes to turn into steel plate, which avoids the additional bot travel that would be needed otherwise to transfer the iron plate to steel plate, or iron plate onto a train, which then goes to a steel smelter. And one last note here, and this is the same system for the iron and copper smelters. These trains are all on internal networks, which is part of what I like about the switching system, is it again eliminates that pathing issue, because these trains literally only can go to one station. Like this bottom train goes up, one line's input, one line's output. He goes up, and he can only go to this smelter. So there's never any pathing issues. You just put the trains on here that you want, and these trains are always going to go to the smelters that they need to, and never conflict with each other. And that's just the case on all of these, except the iron is quite a lot bigger. So that's how that system works. We have the fueling system, which passes through here. And let's move on. Iron, we're just going to stop there so you can just preview it really quick. Everything I went into here is, pretty much identical. So we're going to do this. So far, the signaling and track has allowed us to get there. And I'm sure people will be asking, how many trains do I have on this map? Because there are a lot of trains. Last count, and I added at least 10 to 15 more trains since this last count. I don't count now because it requires a command which disables my local achievements. Could just reload a save, but whatever. As of last count, there were about 425 trains on this map, and like I said, I've added at least 10 to 15 since then. So nearing 450 trains on the map that are actually being used. There's like 3 here that are parked, but I think I actually did those after the count. So that includes outpost trains and all the trains within here, but that's how many trains are here. So it's a lot of trains. How is production doing? We're still doing 170k. We're doing nearly 355 or 50,000 iron a minute. So the station here in the middle that we just passed is a fueling station for the smelters. It's kept separate from the switcheroos because we obviously don't want those bot networks connecting. And yeah, same exact system. Here it's just more of them. And then the smelters come in, and it utilizes some tricks to make it as efficient as possible. I mean, you'll notice, we're at 57 UPS, but I would say that's pretty good considering we're doing 350,000 iron a minute, and we were doing 170k green circuits a minute. But yeah, so this guy, he shares chests for one, to kind of take more advantage of the bot cargo size, potentially, and also just less places the bots have to travel. And then also all the chests are faced towards the middle. You'll see these two are requesters, and then out to the left, the requesters are faced towards the middle, and then here they are as well. And we're not actually using max like 6 inserters per wagon, and we've gone over this, I've gone over this in other videos, but we're only using the amount of inserters we actually need to load and unload trains, and it greatly reduces inserters. Even with all these reductions in inserters throughout the builds, we still have 28,000 inserters on this map. So you can imagine how high that would be if we just didn't take any actions to reduce inserters. So that's kind of the deal there. And one thing you may notice, I'll mention it just because I'm sure some people will notice, is well, first off, we have gears made up here. And this is a very cool system where it's kind of like the steel, where ore is brought in and brought to plate smelters, which then directly insert through chests to gears. And again, this was done to eliminate the step for robots, where the robots would have to bring the plate maybe to a train, and then the train would take it to a gear facility, which would be pretty typical how it would work. Or even if you still did it within the same build, it eliminates the bots having to take the plate to the gear machines, right? Because it's directly inserted through chests. So this eliminates quite a lot of bot travel. And it's not perfect ratios, but this thing does like 20,000 gears a minute. I mean, it's still pretty beefy. And the other thing to notice is due to how I mirrored this, is I mirrored it like, I mean, it is mirrored, right? You'll see that the ore inputs from the left here and then inputs from the right here and stuff. But to keep it all right-hand drive, because initially this half was left-hand drive due to the mirroring, to keep it that way, the trains come in a reverse order. So here they come into the shunt first and then into their pickup, whereas here they come into the pickup first and then the shunt. And we are using shunts because it is a row system where they pull in and pull straight out. You don't need shunts, it just creates a loop, and I don't like using loops. It's certainly not necessary. If you just don't mind using loops, then it's totally not a problem. But that is worth mentioning, and I'm just fixing this train for some reason is broken. It has been for a long time, and I don't know what's wrong with this station. It just apparently randomly decides that it's not fully in the station and then won't unload, which is why this gear build was completely off. But yeah, so there's that, and copper is identical. We'll go there just really quickly just so you can see the area itself, but it is the same thing except copper smelters. And each one of these smelter units does 24.7 thousand a minute. So our total potential capacity for iron, including what's in the steel here, is almost 500,000, 500,000 a minute. We have not actually hit that amount yet. The highest I've gotten to is about 400,000 a minute. But due to just, how trains movement and a little buffers here and there, just to how things load and unload and timings, I doubt it'll ever literally be 100%, just because of how that stuff works. But at least we're back up to 60 now. Let's just knock out some more of these researches. We're still doing a good number of stuff here. So this just goes straight down. So yeah, copper smelters, same deal. Switcheroos as well. These big stackers are just, big stackers because there's like 60 or so trains for each of these. So in case they all, for some reason, came in and couldn't get in, there is room to stack them all in there. And then, I'm going to see if I can zoom out here a little bit. So there you go. That's there goes my FPS, but that's actually a really cool view. You can see all the trains moving back and forth. Wow, this is actually fascinating. The FPS is crap, which is not surprising. This is like 10 times zoom, but this is actually really I've never actually zoomed out this far in this area. This is really quite cool. So we're going to zoom back in here. And we're now going to head to oil. And the oil is, it's actually on an island. I decided that I wanted it on an island, as well as the rockets and the laps are also on islands, just because some people don't like it. If you don't, then that's fair enough. I can see why. Personally, I do like it. I do like having these little island builds for stuff like that. I think it's just kind of cool and separates just the, vast plains of, just continuous factory with like no discernible differences or whatever. I just like having them on islands. So oil is way down this way, and I guess on our way, one thing I can mention is you'll notice maybe that this entire area up here is not actually connected to the track down here, and that's because the ore lines are actually separate to reduce traffic on main lines. Previously, in all my playthroughs, I've had ore trains on the same lines as the plate trains and the intermediate trains and stuff, but here they're on their own separate lines because there's so many of them. So we're now here at oil. This half does light oil and lube. So these three sets here do lube from the heavy oil, and then they barrel up the light oil and barrel up the petroleum, which is sent over to the right. And then this one here does primarily light oil and sends the petroleum over to the right. The excess we do get just from the refining process. This one, well, all the rest on this side do light oil, specifically, essentially. And then all the ones on the right here do petroleum primarily. And obviously, no, they actually just do petroleum because all the light is cracked into petroleum up here, and then all the heavy's cracked into light. We primarily need petroleum. So this is the system. We have these oil trains delivering and stuff here. We are using 333s, and each set of these tanks goes to a certain build. So like this set of 4 goes to this one, this set of 4 goes to the middle one, and this set of 4 goes to this one. So each train essentially supplies 3 sets. You can maybe see it a little better here. And we're using the same system where the stations turn off when a train's there, so that it kind of forces trains waiting to path to a station that's actually open and needs it. So that's how that's done. We're using bots to transfer barrels. It really doesn't take too many bots. And then over here on the right is battery production, sulfuric acid production, for blue circuits that's transported out. And then obviously some sent to batteries. And the batteries have their own smelting over here on the far right that's passed over because that was just a lot easier than trying to somehow bring in smeltered materials from the main smelters. And then over here is actually the petroleum load. We put it on this side just because there wasn't room here. These islands are separate. In fact, these bot networks are separate. This one is separate. It just covers the requester over here for the petroleum to go into this area. And then this, you can see, is separate as well. So it's kind of just bridged across. Here comes the petroleum train. Perfect timing. Waves of bots. There's bot surges, of course, where it used all of them, but just for a couple seconds. You can see how quickly that loads. If we take a look at production, fluids, we're doing about 480,000 petroleum a minute. I think we have the ability to do over 500,000. I don't remember the exact numbers. The water is just outrageous, but that's water. Yeah, so petroleum, 475, 500,000 a minute is typically what's needed and what we're doing. It does eat through a lot of oil, but I've like super speed beacon and stuff on my pump jacks. So we're now going to head to circuits, and this is where it gets... this is my favorite part of the factory, actually, besides the smelters. Well, it's this... Yeah, it's the most active, I would say, besides the smelters. I'm quite fond of the lab and silo areas as well, once we get there, but the circuits are usually pretty busy. And super dense with tracks, too. I'm gonna... Because, like I said, this dumps us in the middle, and I'm going to run around. So, hopefully I don't die. I mean, most of you probably know my experience with trains. It's there's a lot of trains in this area. So, yeah, this is obviously, to be expected, a longer video. And hopefully you don't mind. I mean, if you wanted to see a base tour, then I would imagine you don't mind. But... Are we supposed to be turning here soon? Okay. I was like... We're going to miss our turn here. So this is actually the same line we took down to the iron packs. It is kind of all interconnected within this area. But we're actually going to go down to right next to the acid drop-off. So here's our blue circuits. This one's actually working. Green trains come in. You can see waiting here and one waiting here. Each one of these, this one has 1.5 builds. Green builds entirely dedicated to it, and this one on the left has 2 builds entirely dedicated to it. They're the same size and do the same amount, but the dedication of builds didn't quite work out perfectly. So green trains come in, red trains come in from up above, and you'll see, I mean, this only uses like 400 bots. Of course, we do have bot speed 15, but each one of these does about 3.6, 3.8 thousand blue circuits a minute. With one of them running, we are doing 3.8. So we can do almost 8,000 with 2 builds fully running. This one seems to be missing its blue trains, or yeah, it's blue trains, which is fine because that means that we're not super behind on that. They're in their delivery areas. So you can see these guys are coming in, and these use dedicated lines, and this is the main kind of, I would say, advantage to this factory is that all this stuff in here is dedicated lines. So this one comes over, and it's this build, which also supplies assemblers and drills, but then this build as well ties into it. And these lines do not interfere with any other circuit lines. They don't interfere with copper lines. I mean, they cross the iron lines, but they're not actually on the same line. And then this one here, which goes to this first blue circuit build, is these 2 builds, which again are entirely dedicated. And the same applies to copper. You'll see this whole, thing of copper lines here. Each one goes to 1 build. So they're all dedicated setups. And then same with iron, which is huge. This is like 20 tracks or something. Each splits off and goes to a separate circuit build. And then the red circuits are dedicated lines straight into the blues, or straight into the speed modules. And then the plastic is, again, centered in between the reds to go straight in between those. So here's the red builds. These ones are quite big. Potentially, if I were to do this again, maybe not have quite as big of a red build. This actually takes, when it's fully working, like 800, 900 bots, which is kind of pushing the limits a little bit for me. Personally, I find separated networks with low bot usage is far better for performance than higher bot usage, obviously. So circuits come in, again, dedicated lines. Plastic is in the middle here, gets petroleum delivered up top, coal delivered here, and then the plastic trains take these little dedicated lines and go straight into reds. And then same with a mirrored red build up top. And this one actually goes, kind of wraps back around top of itself. He exits around the right here and goes this way, and then goes into a stacker, which is also shared from this red build for speed modules. And then green circuits come from this build over to speed modules. And this build also supplies other things. Like this is the one that goes out to the main network, the only one actually. And it supplies, you know, the circuits for the inserters at Green Science and the circuits for other stuff that I don't recall. We can take a look here. Blue circuit. Oh, right. All my stations are named the same since they're dedicated lines, so it's a little hard to tell. Yeah, so Green Science and electric engines. That's the other one. It's electric engines. So these come over, and you may be wondering why we need like 2 red builds for this, but only like a third of a green build, since it's just shared, right? And it's just the production numbers. You know, each one of these red builds can only do like, I think like 11,000 red circuits a minute, whereas a green build can do almost 32,000 a minute. So it's, you know, obviously a huge difference. And yeah, so we have 7 green builds times the amount. We have the ability to do, I believe, like 217,000 green circuits a minute. Earlier in the video, when we hit almost 200,000, that was actually the highest I'd seen it actually working. You know, like I said, it was designed to do like 217,000. I've never actually seen it do that much. But so here's one working. You know, pretty similar deal. Same tricks with the chests and inserters. Iron comes over from the right, and they have their spacing here so that you can stack trains. You'll notice that most of these builds actually don't have stackers, and that is the advantage again to these segregated lines, is they act as stackers. You'll see all the trains are stacked in these lines, and it's just signaled in such a way that they don't block the intersections, right? Because that would be the main concern, is that they block intersections. But they're chained essentially in areas where a train cannot stack, so that a train won't pull in here and then block this area and stick out past here. So it's chained all the way through until a point where it can stack, like right here. Oh dear. And because you can see a full train can fit in here, so it'll pull in once this space is available, rather than this space here. Yeah, like I said, this is horrifyingly dangerous. So that takes care of that. All the green circuit builds are pretty much identical. A fuel drop-off station here. And yeah, so there's that. Speed module build, I think I briefly looked at. It's pretty straightforward. This train just blasts through here. Yeah, he just straightforward green, reds in, blue circuits out to the main line. And all these junctions, so this is like, this red build goes out to the main line for stuff that needs it, blue science and stuff. Speed modules go out, obviously, so this connection here is for, you know, the copper and stuff for red circuits and the things for plastic. And then this is how blues exit, as well as the fuel trains and acid delivery trains and stuff. So we're going to hop back in the PAX train and head to the next stop. I think we're getting pretty close here. Glad to put in those extra legs. This is a bit of a run. So production is still looking good, about 300,000 iron a minute. That seems to be about the average. And I probably should have stated initially, anyone who watched the actual Sending Supporters to Space series knows this, but in case you haven't seen the series, again, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, so I apologize, but this map is able to do, well, set up and capable of doing 4,000 science packs a minute and 4 rockets per minute. It was designed with a 5% margin in mind, so actually it can technically do like 4.2 to 4.3 thousand a minute, and then obviously like 4.2 rockets a minute or whatever. And typically we do that unless there's backups or buffers. Like in this case, some of these science builds are probably buffered up to the point where they're not actually producing. Like, for example, red and greens aren't even on, even though we're consuming packs, and that's just probably because you know, they weren't working, or they were working maybe when some of the other packs were short or something, or I had science turned off, so they built up a buffer, which is almost unavoidable unless I just completely cap the chests. This one, actually, in this case, is missing a train of some sort. It's actually missing a gear train, and that's because the iron thing probably broke again. Yeah, iron thing broke. I really don't know. I've, like, replace this with an exact copy of one that does work, and like quadruple checked all the wiring and signals, and I don't understand why this doesn't work. It's literally just this one station. Like, out of every switcheroo in the entire map, it's that one station that doesn't register. That, like, you can see the train, right? You can see it's not fully pulled in like this one, but it turns off the station before it gets there. I don't know what the problem is, but it really messes stuff up. So here's green. Belts and inserters are made within it. They're kind of spread equal distance here, and then it's mirrored on the top. And you know, it just has iron and circuits and gears delivered, which are then obviously requested to make the belt and inserters, which are speed moduled because you can't productivity module them. Everything else, everything that can be productivityed in this map is productivityed. And then the green train picks up, and we'll go to the labs. And then red over on the left is actually, we could just map view this. It's actually extremely simple. It's tiny, but it just delivers copper and gears, and it's good to go. That's all there is to it. And then same setup. And yeah, this is off because there's no gears because the stupid iron train broke again. So there's that. And then blue is a little bit more complicated because obviously blue takes, I always forget, advanced circuits, engines, and drills. So he gets his, the packs come in here. I kind of like, I wanted to make it look nice. So, you know, I like mirrored these kind of bird stackers, I think is what we like to call them. They look kind of like wings maybe. So these are mirrored. So like packs come in here for greens and packs come in here for blues. And then like the feed materials come in from here and then from here. And then the blues from here. So trains coming in. This is the mining drill train, which carries 12,000. It just started unloading. That's why it was 11. Red circuits are delivered, and then engines are delivered. And actually not, engines will probably stop because there's no gears. And then blue packs come in and pick up. So these guys, you know, nothing is made here locally. So it just requests all the stuff, inserts in, exports out, and the train comes and picks it up. And then we have where the packs train went. This is our fueling, which this is a kind of a long bot network, but it's not connected to the other networks, and it is pretty much never used except for when the fuel train comes in. So I consider that acceptable to have this big of a network just because it's used like once every hour or something, and it barely only uses any bots. So there's that. Let's head over to purple and high tech, which we cannot get to. For some reason I thought we wouldn't be able to. So we get to manual drive this. This should be fun. I'm not sure why we can't make it out. And I already missed my turn. This ought to be fun. Come on, man. Is this like not? Oh. Okay. I can actually just fix this now. Problem is, thank you, game. Problem is I made this turn so it like overlaps the other one and doesn't actually work. Okay, so we'll have to move these signals, obviously. That hopefully is fine. I'm not sure if 3 locomotive can fit in here. That's they should actually just about be able to. Okay, so now we should be able to. Yeah, it's because those were overlapping. It's no wonder I couldn't manually make that turn. Almost mining prod 180. The mining prod I find really helps with oil, specifically. Obviously, it helps with ores as well, but oil is really, really affected by it. So production obviously fluctuates, you know, back and forth. Sometimes it's like going super crazy, drops our UPS. Other times it's kind of just idling a little bit. I'm guessing the iron train broke again. This is really frustrating, and I don't know why it happens. See, it doesn't happen every time either, which is the weird thing. Is it happens like every, I don't know, 5th, 8th, 12th time randomly, which I just can't discern what the problem is. So purples have electric engines delivered, a dedicated line from over on the left here, and then furnaces delivered and assemblers delivered. So I should have viewed this when we were by circuits, but we can map view it. So assemblers are here, and they get circuits delivered from this build above it, like I said, that shares with the blues, and iron delivered on a dedicated line here, all the way across, and then gears delivered same way. And it makes assemblers, and you guys may be wondering why didn't I just fully beacon these and stuff. It's actually to, because I could have done it with like one assembler maybe on each side, making the assemblers if I fully beaconed them. But we did this to actually spread out bot travel. You'll see that for the most part, the bots are actually making direct cross path, or you know, direct left to right paths. If I were to just put one assembler like in the middle here that's fully beaconed, the bots would be doing less than ideal pathing because they would go all the way out to these corners to get the materials right, which is not as good as them just zipping over here and then straight into where they need to go, which they're pretty much doing. So this is the reason we spread this out like that, even though it's not actually necessary in regards to production numbers. And then the drills, same thing. We could have just fully beaconed them, but again, you'll see the bots are pretty much just going directly across, which is what you want. Opposed to if we just done like 2 or 3 machines beaconed and then going all the way to the corners. So these guys produce the drills. We need more drills than assemblers because blue packs only give us 1 pack per cycle and purples give us 2 packs per cycle. So this comes in here. He's waiting to go. Purple trains come in from this. Now this is not quite a nice bird stacker. This one is though. And yeah, so there's purples. Again, a small build. I mean, really doesn't require that much. And over here is engines. Obviously just gets his steel, gears, and plates delivered. And engines go either directly up to the electric engines, or like this train here is waiting to go to blue science because he goes out to the main line. And pretty straightforward. Blue circuit, or not blue circuits, electric engines get their lube, and then their circuits and normal engines come in direct, and then the electric engines go direct to purple science because they're not needed for anything else. Just a separate little lube line here. This was kind of thrown in on the fly a little bit. So yeah, these guys, again, no actual stackers. He's stacking on the line because it's a dedicated line, so he's not going to back anything else up. And then high tech over here is by far the biggest science build. Actually not ideal. It's actually really bigger than it should be by my standards, because it actually has 5 train loaders or unloaders. It has 4 unloaders and 1 loader. So the high tech pack trains come in from the right through this line, and then it delivers blue circuits, copper, speed modules, and batteries all in here. And it's actually waiting on the pack trains, which is good because that means that they're at the labs, either waiting to unload or unloading. And yeah, so that's that build. Again, nothing made locally. Well, actually, the cable is. The cable's made locally and directly inserted again because we don't want to move it via bots or train. So it delivers the copper for the cable, which is then directly inserted. It's not a perfect 1-to-2 ratio with these modules, but it's close enough. And definitely worth the, avoiding the bot travel and stuff. So there's all the science builds. Those are actually fairly straightforward. Those were actually some of the easiest builds I did here. We'll go to the labs, and then we're pretty much done. Labs are, now these, I will give a disclaimer. The labs and the silo setup are not any, I cannot take credit for. I had help on this map a little bit. Most of it was single player. The majority of it was single player. I had help a little bit from Hopewell and Can. Part of what I consider my design team is Hopewell did the silos and Can did the labs because I was just so overwhelmed and it was taking so much time that I needed some assistance. So I just want to mention that I cannot take credit for this setup because this is all Can's doing and testing. So trains come in here, and it actually uses a pretty ingenious system that doesn't require any combinators or anything. So these stations are wired up into here, which are wired to all the requester chests, as well as, actually that's it, they're not wired to the provider chest, but they're wired to all the requester chests to read the contents. If we look here, read contents via the circuit network. And it's sent over to these stations, and These stations are set to send train based on a condition. So the train's schedule, and this is the same for all the trains, just specific to their pack type. He comes in to this wait station, and his conditions are he can go in if everything meaning each other pack is greater than the pack it's carrying. So to clarify, because this confused me a little bit at first, it's not all packs combined. So it's not like if red plus, or well, in this case, if it's not if like green plus blue plus purple plus high tech plus space are all more, like total. It's if green is more, and blue is more, and purple is more, and high tech and space is more, then it can go in. So essentially, if this is the lowest pack count, it can go in. Or, well, and it also has to meet the condition that the red packs in the network are less than 60,000, so it can fully unload the train. And again, this is identical for all these except for, being specific to its pack type. And this is why, so this station takes in the numbers here. You can mouse over the power poles and see. So like if a space science train came in here, he would go straight in because he's the lowest pack and it's less than 60,000. So he would zip right in. Speaking of which, I don't know why we're not launching rockets. We should be. Seems to be missing something. Oh, the train's got a little bit jammed up. Like I said, this is not 100% working yet. I mean, it is mostly working. Sometimes we just have little goof ups like this. Can be fixed with some signaling, I think. So then this side is just mirrored here. This is what the full setup looks like. We take a little water ride through here. And then we have the labs, which the bots carry to. These labs can consume 4,000 science packs a minute, what the base is built to produce. However, they do have productivity modules in them, so we actually are able to technically do more than 4,000 science points per minute, I guess would be the best way to say that, because we're getting the productivity bonus from the labs, or from within the labs, right? So they're consuming 4,000 packs a minute, but each one gives 20% productivity on top of that. So that's the lab setup. We will now go to the shunt, because we use a shunt to get out. Take another little water ride here. So yeah, we've launched nearly 1,000 satellites themselves, 646 Twitch followers, 647 subscribers, 66 patrons, and 1 patron plus. So if you don't know, I'm launching all of my supporters, subscribers, patrons, Twitch followers into space with special tokens. Why can you not get... Well, I don't know why you can't get there. I guess we are going in the manual mode. All right, let's floor it. This ought to be interesting. We might crash. Oh, there's a patron. So yeah, Can had made this special mod which generates tokens based on amount of science done. So as long as we're doing science, we're generating tokens, and then the tokens are combined with a satellite to make capsules of the given type. So like a Twitch follower capsule and subscriber capsule, and then those are stuck into rockets and launched and count towards the total here. And then also a very cool feature, which I will end out the video on, is we can actually go visit everybody, all the Twitch followers and patrons that have been launched into space. Unfortunately, YouTube, I couldn't do it by name because YouTube is dumb and I couldn't pull my entire subscriber list. It's just broken. So we had to just do it by numbers, and visiting them, they're not displayed up in space. Unfortunately, I really wish they were. I'm not actually sure why we can't get to this. There's probably some stupid signaling on my part. So we're going up to the rocket component section. So far, I haven't crashed. I'm not sure. Oh, geez. I think we need to actually turn here. Stop. Oh. Nope. That was almost bad. Oh. That was almost really bad. We're going to have to... Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Okay, so it's because this line doesn't actually connect, because I'm an idiot. So here's the pack station, but essentially, let's see, that doesn't actually go, we'll have to walk, that's going to be interesting. So down here is the low density structures, which use the same method as the red circuits in regards to plastic. The plastic is made in the middle, pretty much the exact same build. You'll notice the little like wing things here that go out is copied exactly. So low density structures, the plastics delivered from here, and then the copper and steel are delivered from obviously outside. And we have 2 of them mirrored here. And then also one thing I forgot to actually visit is the furnace build. We have a stone smelter here for all the furnaces, and then the furnace build here, which has red circuits and steel. Well, actually steel comes up from the bottom. Essentially, these 4 steel smelters are all for low density, so 2 of them go to one low density, 2 go to the other, and then these other 3 here go just to furnaces, and then the bottom one distributes to all the other builds that just need a tiny bit of it. So, okay, now we're launching stuff. Yeah, each time this goes off, this is a rocket launching, so we're launching them pretty quick. There's that, and then, geez, I'm so terrified. And then over here is the rocket control units, which have processing units and speed modules delivered from outside. They're stealing all my fuel, and then the rocket control unit trains go into this weight area and then go across. No rocket control unit trains in there currently, which is again a good thing because that means they're either waiting to unload or unloading. And so these go into these weight areas, and same type of deal, send train, and this is circuit wired all the way back in, kind of like the labs. And the train weight conditions are, again, similar to the labs in this sense, that everything is greater than the thing it's carrying, so the same exact type of condition as the labs, or the thing it's carrying is less than 500 in the network, or in the chests here. So, geez, I may not make it through here. Oh dear Lord, run! Oh, that was almost a death. All right, so these then pull into here. And this is now the, so these are the weights. The pre-stacker is just, so I gave you misinformation. That condition I gave you was for this weight station. Before that, at the stacker on the mainland is just, it weights there if the thing it's carrying is greater than 0. So essentially, as long as there's some of the thing it's carrying in here, it waits at the stacker and then moves into here. And then they pull in and they unload here. And the bots move them through, and then the pack trains come in to pick up. The satellite components are dropped off here, which are all made at the Make Everything. And then satellites are brought, or not satellites, radars are brought on a different train, and satellites are made here. And then also so we get our tokens here, right? So these are our tokens that are generated from science. And those are then combined with satellites and made into tokens. So we launch satellites if we don't have the capsules, just because we can keep getting space science, even if we're not getting capsules for some reason. So you can see all these rockets going off. Now, like I said, I can actually, let's see if we can get up to this top one, go up and visit supporters, and this is gonna call an end to this video, guys. So, great. Turn off the auto launch. No, it's already launched. Screw you. So not auto launch. So that's gonna do it, guys. Longer video, but I hope you enjoyed the base tour. If you have any questions or anything that maybe I missed or you're still curious about, do leave them down in the comments. And I would love to just hear your thoughts in general. I have pretty much covered everything. I didn't cover the rocket fuel builds. They're very straightforward. Light oil trains come in, just 1, 2 ones and barrels, and drop off, and then it's turned into solid fuel, which is directly inserted through chests, similar to the other builds, into rocket fuel, which is then picked up here. And that's pretty much as simple as it gets. One last thing to mention, I suppose, is my ore lines. They're a little bit unique in the fact that there's actually 2 output lines. So this is an output line from the smelters, and so is this, and this is an input line, and then this is a PAX line. Because the smelters have 2 outputs. So from this entire left side, they output on this line and come down and tie into the one on the left. And then from the right, they come down and tie into the one on the right. Rather than sharing lines and potentially crossing, I wanted to avoid, so that's why it's set up like that. And so far, it's working beautifully, and it's actually quite cool to watch like 3 different trains passing by each other at the same time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hop in here, and we're gonna go up to space. We're gonna visit everybody, and so yeah, there you go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all the continued support in every way that you do it. And there goes our eardrums, and it didn't, for some reason it just teleports us here. I think I did something wrong, but here we are. So all of our patrons are in here, all of our Twitch followers are in here. I'm gonna zoom out. It's gonna look really weird for a second. Actually, that's the wrong button. So here's everybody we've launched so far up into space. Get to visit them all. They're all they're floating capsules up here. So here is everyone we've launched. Obviously YouTube subs as well. We will just we'll imagine that they're here with us. You guys count as much as everybody else. If only YouTube would let me export my entire subscriber list. But yeah, thank you as always, guys, so much for everything. I hope you enjoyed. The series will be continuing. This is not the end of the series, but I wanted to do a base tour. And yeah, if you did enjoy, I can't talk, feel free to leave a like. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.